Imagine being told to leave immediately and not look back. That's it. No explanation. No follow-up questions. No time to pack matching socks. Just go. Now. That's the situation Lot and his family are in. The city behind them, Sodom, is officially past the point of saving. This is not a warning. This is not a "things might get bad." This is a full evacuation notice. The kind where ignoring it doesn't lead to inconvenience, but to complete disaster. There is no plan B. There is no negotiation window. There is no 5 more minutes. From a modern perspective, this would be like every emergency alert on your phone going off at once and clearly saying, "Leave immediately or lose everything." Not metaphorically, literally. Lot doesn't debate it. The message is clear enough. The city is done. Time is up. And yet, even in a moment like this, something very human happens. Leaving fast is unpleasant. People don't like sudden exits. They don't like abandoning routines, homes, unfinished plans, or things they paid good money for. Leaving calmly is hard enough. Leaving under pressure is worse. Leaving while knowing everything behind you is about to disappear forever is extremely uncomfortable. This is forced detachment at maximum speed. No one in this group is floating out heroically. They're moving because they have to. The situation allows zero emotional processing time, no closure, no long goodbyes, just movement. And that's where the instruction comes in. Do not look back. At first glance, it sounds strange, almost dramatic. Why would looking back matter? Is this about curiosity? Is it superstition? Is it just an oddly specific rule added for tension? Most people, hearing this story for the first time, assume it's arbitrary, like a test with unnecessary rules. You can leave, but don't turn your head. It feels excessive. After all, looking back seems harmless, reflexive even. People look back when they leave hotels. They look back when they move houses. They look back when they change jobs. It's normal. So the rule feels picky. But the story isn't presenting it as a suggestion. It's part of the escape itself. Leaving and not looking back are treated as one single action, not two separate ideas. This is not about posture. It's about direction. Because the problem in moments like this is rarely the feet. Feet usually move when danger is obvious. The real problem is everything else. The mind lingers, the attachment resists. The internal debate starts quietly, and while Lot's family moves forward physically, the story makes it clear that not everyone is equally ready to leave what's behind. At this point, everything still seems manageable. They are walking, they are obeying, they are technically doing what they were told, but the instruction wasn't random, and the reason it mattered hasn't shown itself yet. The problem was not her neck. It was her heart. Physically, Lot's wife is doing exactly what she's supposed to do. Her feet are moving forward. Her body is heading out of the city. From the outside, everything looks fine. Compliance achieved, instructions followed. But emotionally, she hasn't left. Not really. Part of her is still back there in the place that's about to be erased. The streets, the house, the familiar routines, the life that existed 5 minutes ago and now suddenly doesn't. This is the strange thing about leaving. The body can exit much faster than the mind. Modern people know this feeling well. It's like walking away from a job, a relationship, or a phase of life, but still checking old messages, still scrolling through photos, still replaying conversations that no longer matter but refuse to stop loading. You've left, but your attention didn't get the memo. Lot's wife is in that exact moment. Her legs are cooperating. Her thoughts are not. This is not rebellion. There's no dramatic refusal, no argument, no shouting, no speech about how unfair this all is. That would actually be simpler. Clear resistance is easy to identify. This is quieter. Her body is in motion. Her mind is buffering. It's like an emotional software update that froze at 99%. Everything technically works, but nothing is fully processed, and that's the key point of the story. Looking back is not about curiosity. Curiosity asks questions. Curiosity leans forward. This is something else. This is attachment. This is hesitation. This is the internal pause that happens when a decision has been made on paper but not accepted internally. The exit is official, but the heart hasn't signed the form yet. She knows the city is condemned. That part isn't unclear. This is not denial. She understands what's happening. The warning was explicit. The situation is final. But understanding something and letting it go are very different processes. The danger here isn't that she wants to stay. It's that part of her still wants to keep something. One last image, one last confirmation, one last mental screenshot. People often assume the biggest mistakes look dramatic, loud, obvious, full of bad intentions. But most of the time they don't. They look like hesitation. They look like delay. They look like standing between two directions for just a second too long. The decision to leave has already been made. That box is checked. The movement has started. But acceptance is lagging behind, dragging its feet, insisting on closure that the moment no longer allows. And in situations like this, time is not neutral. Every fraction of a second matters. Because the escape wasn't just about leaving physically. It required full commitment, forward motion without negotiation, direction without emotional debate. And that internal delay, small, quiet, almost invisible, is about to cost everything. In the middle of the escape, she looks, that's it. No warning music, no slow motion build-up, no dramatic speech, just an instant. One small movement, one simple gesture, no words at all. From the outside, it barely registers. This is not a grand act of rebellion. She doesn't stop running. She doesn't turn around completely. There's no announcement, no visible defiance. It's the kind of movement that happens almost automatically, and that's what makes it dangerous. In modern terms, it's like replying to one last message you already know you shouldn't answer. You don't plan it. You don't sit down and debate it. Your fingers just move. You tell yourself it's harmless, quick, final, just to close the loop. It takes less than a second. That's what happens here. This is not someone openly refusing the instructions. It's not someone testing boundaries. It's not a bold challenge. It's a fraction of a second where hesitation turns into action. A tiny delay becomes a decision, and immediately the story stops moving. Everything freezes, literally. The narrative doesn't describe panic. It doesn't describe fear. It doesn't describe regret. There is no internal monologue explaining what she felt or why she did it. The text does not slow down to explore her emotions. It simply shows the result. She becomes a pillar of salt. No build-up, no aftermath scene, no commentary. One moment she's moving. The next moment, she isn't. That abruptness is intentional. The story doesn't want the audience to get distracted by emotional speculation. It doesn't invite sympathy or judgment in that moment. It refuses to explain the psychology. It just presents a hard stop, because the point isn't how she felt. The point is what hesitation did. Up until now, everything had been gradual, walking, thinking, delaying internally. But this is where the gradual turns absolute. The smallest possible action leads to the largest possible consequence, and that's uncomfortable. People prefer mistakes that feel proportional. Big error, big outcome. Small error, small outcome. That feels fair, that feels predictable. This story doesn't work like that. Here the mistake is tiny, almost invisible, something that would normally be brushed off as human reflex. But the situation doesn't allow for reflex. It doesn't allow for partial commitment. It doesn't allow for emotional lag. It doesn't allow for just one more look. The escape required movement without backward negotiation. The moment that negotiation slipped back in, even for a heartbeat, the process stopped entirely. And that's why the text moves on so quickly. No explanation, no defense, no footnote, just consequence. Which forces an uncomfortable question to surface, whether the reader likes it or not. If the action was that small, why was the result so final? And what does that say about moments where hesitation feels harmless? The mistake was not breaking a random rule. This wasn't about a technicality. It wasn't about God being overly strict, dramatic, or unusually sensitive about neck movement. The story is very clear about that, even if it doesn't explain it out loud. The look backward represents something else entirely. It represents refusal to fully break away. Sodom wasn't being warned. It wasn't being corrected. It wasn't going through a rough patch that might improve with better leadership or nicer behavior. The decision was already final. The city was condemned. In modern terms, this wasn't a renovation project. It wasn't a temporary shutdown. It was a permanent closure. Project cancelled. Trying to preserve anything from that situation was pointless, not risky, not questionable, pointless. There was nothing left to save because the outcome had already been sealed. That's what makes the look backward significant. It wasn't nostalgia, it wasn't curiosity. It was an attempt, however small, to hold on to something that no longer had a future. That's a very human instinct. People do this constantly. They try to rescue versions of life that are already over. They reopen conversations that are finished. They cling to systems that are collapsing. They say goodbye physically while emotionally packing souvenirs. The story draws a sharp line here. Those who kept moving forward survived. Those who tried to preserve what was behind them did not. That's the irony. The intention to hold on feels protective, responsible even. It feels like care. But in this case, preservation becomes the problem, and that's where the symbol comes in. Salt preserves. That's what it's known for. It keeps things from decaying. It freezes them in a usable state. But here, preservation turns into stagnation. The salt pillar doesn't move forward. It doesn't go back. It doesn't escape. It just remains. It's not alive. It's not progressing. It's not even actively suffering. It's simply stuck. That image reframes the entire moment. This isn't a scene of impulsive punishment. It's a visual representation of what happens when attachment overrides direction. Movement required commitment. Commitment required letting go. The moment that letting go failed, movement stopped. And that's uncomfortable because it shifts responsibility. The story doesn't frame this as a sudden act of divine anger. It frames it as consequence, as outcome, as the natural end of hesitation in a moment that demanded decisiveness. Which is why the story doesn't linger here either. It doesn't justify. It doesn't explain emotionally. It just lets the image sit there, a preserved figure that can't go anywhere. The mistake looks small, almost insignificant, a glance, a fraction of a second, something most people would excuse without thinking twice, but the meaning behind it is massive. Because in moments like this, the danger isn't moving in the wrong direction, it's refusing to move at all. And that idea leads directly to the core lesson the story has been building toward all along. Lot's wife did not stop because she looked back. She stopped because she couldn't move forward. That distinction changes everything. Up to this point, the situation had been very clear. There was a warning. There was an open exit. There was enough time to escape, if the instructions were followed fully. Nothing about the situation was vague or confusing. The path forward existed. What made the difference was not information, it was commitment. A clear alert had been given, a way out had been provided. The decision to leave had already been made. And yet, a single, almost invisible action produced a total outcome. That's uncomfortable because it challenges how people usually think about mistakes. Most people expect errors to announce themselves loudly. They expect bad decisions to come with dramatic speeches, obvious rebellion, or reckless behavior. But this story does not work that way. Not every mistake is noisy. Some are quiet, some are subtle, some look harmless in isolation. A glance, a pause, a moment of hesitation. Those don't feel dangerous. They feel human. But the story makes a sharp point. In moments that demand direction, hesitation is not neutral. It doesn't freeze the situation safely. It changes it. Looking back, in this context, is not about curiosity. Curiosity is forward-looking. Curiosity asks what's ahead. This is about attachment. Attachment to what was familiar. Attachment to what felt stable. Attachment to something already finished. In modern terms, it's like letting the past vote on decisions it no longer qualifies to influence. It's giving outdated versions of life decision-making power over what comes next. And that's the real warning buried inside the simplicity of the story. The danger is not what's ahead. The danger is what refuses to stay behind. The story never asks the audience to judge Lot's wife emotionally. It doesn't paint her as especially evil or uniquely flawed. In fact, the lack of emotional detail makes the point sharper. This could happen to anyone. The failure wasn't dramatic defiance. It was incomplete departure. She left physically but not fully. And in moments like this, partial movement isn't enough. The escape required direction without negotiation. Once negotiation returned, even briefly, the movement stopped entirely. That's why the story ends the way it does. No long explanation, no extended moral speech, just an image and a consequence. And the image lingers. Not of destruction, not of chaos, but of stillness. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't moving in the wrong direction. It's standing still while everything else moves on. That's why this story keeps getting retold. Not because of shock value, but because it quietly exposes a pattern people still recognize. Leaving situations is rarely about feet. It's about what the heart refuses to release. And that leads to the obvious question. Which story should be simplified next? Jonah, Esau, or Abraham?